I came across the steering wheel, which is a magnificent piece of woodwork. And I thought, if I ever going to get started, I'm going to start on this steering wheel and see how it comes out. And it came out so beautiful that I said, you know what, this is going to work. It actually was that first piece that gets you going, and that was the steering wheel. But just having a vision for what it was going to look like. I had that black and white picture from 1927. And doing some research on the vehicle, I found out that the engine company is still there and operational in Detroit. And the big building that this was housed in originally is now in the Detroit Foundation as a boutique hotel. So it has a lot of background. It was 1974. And if you'll recall then, it was the beginning of the gasoline crisis. And I was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, where they have a big antique automobile club meet, one of the biggest ones in the country. And I saw this vehicle, and I was there with a couple of friends of mine, and we just thought it was such a cool looking thing. The guy that had it was from Wisconsin, and he'd driven it down to Hershey to sell it. Well, one thing is, it's a Packard. And it's not possible to let a Packard just go to the dump. I mean, you just can't let a Packard go. So that was one of the initial things. I was going to take my 9-year-old soccer team into this vehicle and drive them to the field and just intimidate the other team. But the team got to playing so well that I never got the chance to do it. So I've just took it apart little by little. I put all the pieces away. I had pieces all over the house, the garage, the attic, the basement. And a couple of years ago, after my son said to me for the 747th time, "Hey Dad, when are you going to finish the Packard?" I decided I was retired and it was time to do it. And believe it or not, I found all of the pieces with one or two exceptions. I've talked to a number of people who said, you know what, that engine's been apart for so long and those parts have been apart, you'll never get it back together. But I talked to Tom and he said, yeah, we do that kind of stuff. The guys at Sterling Hot Rods are really unbelievable in their ability to solve problems. And when you have an old vehicle, you have a lot of problems. Fitting things together, they can make parts, they can assemble parts. So Sterling Hot Rod folks are really superb at what they do. When it started up, I was just like over the moon. I couldn't believe it.
That needs like another washer on it to hold it tighter. Oil pressure and everything. God bless it. Okay. Shut out her now.
Shut up. Back don't want to shut it down then.
It needs to get it warm enough to resource it.
My usual pulse rate is about 70. And just before we fired it up, it was about 100. And when it started, it hit 130. So that's how I'm feeling. I am really excited because it's been a long time and there's complicated stuff, you know. And these guys have done a brilliant job.
Fix that.
You gotta fix that leak tube.
This also shocked the crap out of me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What happened?
I got
Doc.
the distributor just electrocuted me a little bit.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it's going through this cap somehow. It's probably bleeding through these spark plug
I
wires.
wouldn't touch that while it's running.
Yeah, don't touch those ones.
So what do you think?
Is it making you smarter or dumber?
Yeah, it makes you sterile for like 3 days. That's about it. You get electrocuted like that.
What do you think, Doc? It's been a while, huh?
Can't believe it. I can't believe it. Good
Fired
job.
right up.
It's like it's been
Good.
already running.
Right.
Like it's been running all this time.
Sterling Hot Rods does it again. All right. It's been 43 years since I took that engine apart. And I had all the parts at the house, in the attic, in the basement, in my garage. And I found all the pieces. And I got them all, and I sort of refurbished them all, and then I took them up to Robert Vento in Pennsylvania. He rebuilt the engine, poured new bearings, and got it all set up. And here we are. Today's the day.
Congratulations, Doc. It's been a long time coming.
And your guys, man, your guys did it.
It's awesome, man. Thanks for letting us help out.
Well, first of all, the guy that rebuilt the engine is some little ancient mechanic who's up outside of Pittsburgh, who has a shop about as big as this little area that we're standing in. And he has ancient machinery. And he does everything by hand instruments. He will not use a digital machine of any kind. And everything he does is little mics, little things here and there. And he pours the Babbitt bearings himself and grinds them down. And so this guy is an actual genius at building Packard motors. In 1927, it was commissioned as an ambulance. Paxton Mendelson was one of the Detroit fire commissioners. And apparently from a young lad, he just loved being around fires and fire people and all that kind of stuff. So his mother was a big philanthropist. They had some money, and she spent a lot of time dedicating her time and resources to some of the more unfortunates around Detroit. So when he had this ambulance that he wanted to give away to he actually had it special built. He wanted to dedicate it to his mother, and that's what the plaque says. It was never driven until I came here to Sterling Hot Rod, and we got the engine in it and we drove it around the block. That was the first time it run in 44 years.
You know, working with Doc is just a joy. The guy is, he's 80 years old. I wish I had his energy. And he knows every single nut and bolt in this Packard. So we strapped on him an old office chair we found in the trash, cut the legs off of it, strapped it on. We put one of our guys, Joe, on the truck with him, and off he went around the building.
Now you got your ratchet back on the side over there.
Yeah.
Pull that.
All right, Doc, fill her off. Nope.
No!
Oh, we're gonna get you down to flat. This thing wants to drive. I know, but we'll get you drive all the way down there. No, all right, stand there, Doc. Stand there.
Hit the brake, Doc.
Hit the brake. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Say when.
Whenever you're ready.
We got to stop.
Yeah, it works.
Okay. She had a little indigestion and just burped up a little fluid. Of course, we didn't have a windshield, so it just blew all over the place. But it wasn't hot, so it was okay. I knew she was alive then. She could regurgitate. I knew she was going to be okay.
Handwood. Balls is a handful. Yeah.
Good job, sir.
Well done.
We need a cap. We need a radiator cap.
How's it running?
It stops.
Flag so you can take your picture of that. You know, you just won the Daytona
That's what
500.
they do. That's what they do. That's what they do at the racetrack.
We made second gear.
Alright. Good job, Doc.
This vehicle is a beast because it's big and it's heavy, it has no power steering. And even though it's got that big wheel, it's really hard to turn. I could have been at Le Mans. I mean, I was going around the parking lot. I was having a big time. The wind was in my hair. And then to add a little bit, when I got to the end, one of the guys had a checkered flag. And he gave me the old checkered flag at the end. So I said, this is a good day. Once the engine was in the frame and I drove it around, I had an idea that I could get it back together. But I wasn't really certain about it. Well, I didn't really know how to do it. And I've never really done any woodworking. So I got in touch with a guy. This lad is from Ireland. He's an architect and he loves woodworking. He now builds furniture, beautiful furniture. If you look at the vehicle, there are no straight lines on that vehicle. Everything is a compound curve. So everything had to be cut on a compound curve and then sanded and fit together, which was really quite a job. But Jerry helped me a lot with that. There are two big iron supports that hold up those pillars. And I tried to bend them in a vise to make them go straight. And once I figured out I couldn't get them straight, I figured it must be a reason why they're at 5 degrees. But keep in mind, I had no idea what the vehicle really looked like once it had been parked for so long. And when I looked at it originally, I had no idea that those things were splayed like that. I've been working at home, and I've built the body. As you can see, it's all made out of white oak, all fitted together. It used some of the old parts on one side, and that other side served as the templates to make the parts for the right side. And we did that in a couple of ways, but the main way was to get these cross ribs for the roof. They're fixed to that headrail, and once they were in place and glued, that made it a lot more rigid. Then we fitted the floorboards and bolted those down, so that made the bottom part of it rigid. So now we got the top and the bottom rigid, which made the sides rigid. And then interestingly, every time you add something like that upper panel, it makes it that much more stiff. So each piece that goes on, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. I don't know how many, that's counting the ones we actually got into the wood. Doesn't count the ones that we bent, but that was some hard wood. And it did take a little practice to get that done. But yeah, that's very, very hard wood and very heavy. That vehicle's not coming apart. I'm not worried about that. This piece curls around, and then he's taken it off so he can work on this panel, but this fender is all fitted in, ready to go. The running boards are bolted in where they need to be. The front fender's bolted to the running board. So basically the whole body is done. It's now a matter of getting this where it needs to be and tucked under. Well, the upper panel was pretty easy for me. You had it up, it goes straight, goes around the curve, not too much problem. The bottom panel I was thinking to myself, this is not gonna happen, because metal doesn't bend that way. But somehow you bend it around there and cut it and soldered it and welded it and beat on it and cursed at it. No, just, and yeah, that was quite a journey. That was really amazing to see how you could actually make that, which is why I didn't want to start over at the beginning, because we already had the shape of one side, and I thought, well, let's use that and then just straighten it and make it right, but it wasn't ever going to be right. But I'm glad that you were able to put that around that curve, because I don't know how in the world I'd ever done that. Oh yeah, it's really coming together. Yeah, it's really coming together. It's getting to look bigger all the time. Yeah, this has got to be lowered about 4 inches. About the roof, which is plywood, supported by ribs inside. And then to make the whole thing waterproof, we put down a layer of Dacron, soft stuff, and then put the black topping on, and that is waterproof, and that had to be stretched all the way down, all the way around, and stapled in place. You can't see the staples because there's a drip rail around there now. So that completed the upper part of the car, and now we've got to work on the details to get ready for the final paint. I believe from looking at pictures of some other fire vehicles that all of the vehicles have a number that identifies the vehicle so that at the fire they can say vehicle 493 needs to move 100 yards further forward. Little by little you get inspired and you see it come along, and as you were likely to say, it just becomes alive. It started going back together, and it kept looking worse and worse until we got to this point where it's now in its final primer, and it looks gorgeous. And I can't wait to get the red paint and the maroon paint on, get the windows finished. But right now, this is, to me, is just spectacular. Because we're talking ground up from a bare frame and rotted wood to what we have here, which is just, unbelievable, really. First thing I saw was the maroon stripe, but the rest of it wasn't painted. And then we we masked that and painted the red. And that was really shocking because it was just so gorgeous. And then we took all of the masking off, and we saw the burgundy against the red, which is really a nice. I'm so pleased with the combination. I think the biggest thing was to see that you could actually get those stylons back where they needed to be. So where it looked like an actual panel, one side, everything fit together. Because all those pieces were all bent out of shape, and it took real skill to get that back together again. And then, of course, when it went from the primer to the first color, that is just like the sun coming up. Yes, that's brilliant. Kidding me? You gotta be kidding me! Look at that thing. Wait, I have to get my sunglasses. It's only been 47 years. Never say only. Oh my God. God, it's coming alive. It's alive! It's alive! Yes, sir. Well done. Lydia, you're looking wonderful. As they say in French, viola. That's cool. Oh, wow. That's looking mighty nice. But you told me she wanted to come back. His approach is just amazing. Start here, go to there, go to there, go to there. You're stuck there, you can't be stuck. You gotta keep going. And that's when I knew it was gonna get done.
You're hired.
Well, there are a lot of similarities. You know, it's hammers and saws, screws and plates, and putting stuff together, making it fit. But the best part about doing this is nobody limps when you're done. And nobody dies. So if you make a mistake, you just take it off and rework it, which is not something you can do in the operating room, obviously. So it's something that you can do, work with your hands. My dad worked with his hands, and I just like working with my hands and seeing a result, and that's how I came about getting started on it. And once you get started, you can't stop. When I was an intern, I was required to deliver a certain number of babies. And every woman who had a baby said they're never going to do it again until they held the baby. And then they said, oh yeah, we'll have some more children. And then I think this is sort of the same way. When you're going through it, you're going, no way I'm going to do this again. But when you see it done, you say, you know what, if I found the right vehicle, I might do it.